Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan, support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We actually just dropped a thought piece this past Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 12 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we've provided you with access to the links in the description down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is education. And on the topic of education this week, we're going to be talking about cultivating the skill of being self-directed. Now, a lot of us assume that we are self-directed in the way that we approach the world around us, but I will say this, a lot of us aren't, right? So even those of us who are formally educated, who in many ways are well-read, might not be self-directed. And a great way to tell if whether or not you are self-directed or not, or if your conclusions are large in part your own. And I find that a lot of people who are like well-read, well-educated, but not self-directed, a lot of their answers are regurgitated, right? And I think that if you've only really been in a formal academic institution, then you're taught how to take in information and to repeat it. You're not taught how to be critical in the way that you think about the information and then arrive to your own conclusions. And arriving to our own conclusions doesn't necessarily mean that we're not arriving to the same conclusions provided in the lessons or in the learnings that we have, but it means that we've done the heavy lifting by way of thinking deeply to achieve those conclusions. And the greatest way to tell if someone is self-directed or not is the level of depth to their answers when you ask them a question about something that they feel strongly about. And a lot of people feel very strongly about ideas, about traditions, about different canons, different norms, different schools of thought that they haven't thought deeply about. In fact, what's even more disconcerting is when they are very animated, they're very passionate about topics that they're not well read on, right? So they've just heard one idea, maybe, through the mouth of someone that they really respect, and then they've taken it on, right? They're now an advocate, they're now someone who is relaying that message as if it's their own, and they're super passionate about it, but they haven't really thought it through, right? They just like the person who taught it to them, right? So because of that, they decided to become their own little campaign towards that initiative. But when you ask them the questions, when you ask them to think deeply about it, rather than tell you what it is that they've done by way of thinking, you're going to get met with irritation, you're going to get met with agitation, and that's because they don't really know why they feel so deeply about it. They just know that they feel deeply about it, and that's someone who is not self-directed. So if you find the things that you're so passionate about, you're very deeply passionate about, and if someone were to ask you a very deep question about it, or if someone were to ask you the why behind your thinking on that specific issue, and if you find yourself getting your back up, getting defensive because someone is questioning your line of thinking, because someone has brought up some really valid contrary points of view, then that is an indication that you might not be as self-directed as you'd like to be. But this isn't me wanting to bring shame and blame to the game. I think for the most part, like if I am self-directed, I attribute it to the fact that I was homeschooled at the right time. So I wasn't homeschooled for the entirety of my primary years. But I think that what I really love about homeschooling, what I really would advocate about homeschooling, is building your own timetable, building your own schedule, and also taking the time that you need for each subject. And because I wasn't in one of those cookie cutter timetables that, you know, typical educations follow through, like I knew what subjects I needed more time with and what subjects I needed less time with. I understood that there are things that we're naturally apt towards, and there are things that we just need to apply ourselves further towards, and there's no shame or blame in that. But it also means that I knew the amount of mental energy I needed to expend to learn something. And a lot of people don't know that for them to really have learned something, really have absorbed that information and made it their own, like you need to expend a considerable amount of mental energy. And especially now we think about some of the narratives going around, some of the ideologies that are popular, that are mainstream, and we think about the thinkers who thought them up, right? A lot of them are politically motivated. These were politically motivated scientific observations. They weren't objective. They weren't purely based out of the, you know, the insight and intellect and the intellectual horsepower of that individual that they came to those conclusions. Those conclusions were very much adapted to the times, to the climate of the times, to what was needed in order to justify some of the atrocities or crimes against humanity that took place in those times, or some of the other situations that were going on that maybe weren't atrocities or crimes against humanity. But we need to recognize that science has a bias, or at least historically has had a bias, especially when it's propagated so broadly that all of us have this general understanding of some tidbit of information, but we don't know where we got it from. And I think that that's the kind of information that you want to take a step back from and start to be self-directed on, which is ask yourself, well, why do I believe this? And now that I've gotten to the why, do I still believe in it? And if I do still believe in it, it is for which reasons? And those reasons need to be personal to you. They need to be your own reasons, and not reasons that were given to you, but the people who had something to gain in you becoming an advocate for their school of thought, or the thing that it is that we're talking about. So I think that that's very, very important. I think that the future generation of children, like when we think about education, it's less about the R&R, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's more about critical thinking. And I'm not saying that reading, writing, and arithmetic aren't important, but I think what is equally important is giving someone the capacity to self-navigate. So the capacity to ask themselves the hard questions about the information that they've been given, so that when someone challenges them on that information, they rise to the occasion to show the amount of thinking that they've done. And I think that conversations are so much more rich. They have so much more depth when you've done the thinking on your own before you approach that conversation. Or even you give yourself the opportunity to really delve deep into that conversation with your thinking cap on, rather than feeling emotional, feeling defensive, feeling attacked because someone doesn't agree with your ideology or your point of view. And so I find that because I am self-directed in my learning, I never take anything that I've learned as absolute. Everything that I know, that I believe, that drives me forward is subject to challenge, right? And I would love for someone to challenge my way of thinking, but do it from a place of deep thought, right? Don't challenge it because you want to get a rise out of me. That's not going to happen, because it's a cerebral, it's an intellectual conversation. So I have thought very deeply about the things that drive me, and I know actually in what instances do the things that drive me will change, right? So I know, like, for the things that I believe in with all of my heart, if there was a factor that I didn't consider that was now part of the equation, that could alter the things that I believe in fundamentally. And I think if all of us don't understand that nothing about the things that we believe should be absolute against every possible outcome, because there are going to be possible outcomes that should make you feel the need to question your stance or your perspective, right? And I think that this is what logical positivism is. When you look at a a general statement, and then you decide, well, what conditions would this statement mean that I position myself this way? And then in what conditions would this statement mean I position myself in an alternative way? And then recognizing that so long as the things align the way that they have been demonstrated, you're going to stand and maintain the position, but you've done the thinking around why you're going to do that. So you're not going to be defensive, you're not going to feel up in arms when someone challenges you. You expect to be challenged, and you're prepared to give the depth of thought to the positions that you've taken that are generally going to be the ways that you navigate through the world around you. So on this topic of education, I want to talk about self-directedness. And self-directedness is not like it's a boat that you miss after a certain age. You can start to become self-directed as soon as today, as soon as now. And definitely teach this skill to your children, allow them to challenge the things that they're taught, and give themselves space to think about the things that they are taught, and if whether or not they agree with the way that it was taught, with the conclusions that come with what was taught, or if they have their own conclusions, or if there's maybe somewhere in between that they would like to sit until more information comes up. And reserving judgment is as valid a position as being for or against something if you don't feel like you have all the right information yet, or we haven't done all the right thinking on it yet. But also know that mental energy needs to be expended. It's not enough to just Google something a couple of times or watch a few people talk about it. Like, you have to go do your own research. You have to read the books, read everything you can, like really delve into the material before you call it your own, before you own it as your own material. And that is the basis, the essence of self-directedness. Taking that responsibility, taking the onus and the accountability for the things that you talk about, that you believe in, that you advocate for, in the way that you approach your learning on those topics before you feel inclined to be the expert of it. So that's really the topic for today. That's the challenge that I have for you today. I want you to think about 3 of your most fundamental beliefs, and I want you to ask yourself, where did they come from, why you believe in them, and in what, albeit rare, cases would you change your position on those beliefs. So that's my homework for you. I would love to hear in the comments down below as to what you've done this deep thinking work on. And there's no timeline, right? Like, you can give yourself the starting point, the trajectory on delving into these beliefs and getting a sense as to where they come from and what they mean and how they have driven the way that you've navigated around the world around you. But you don't necessarily need to have a conclusion within a set period of time. In any case, that is it for today, but definitely not all. Now, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to tune in. Now, these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, so we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above these events. So definitely make a point to check it out. Be part of our game changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. We are on the road to 1K, so we do invite you to follow us across all of our social media platforms, and we look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.
I just feel like no one's listening.